shows the bullet caused severe hematoma. We need to repair that artery.
My God, how thick was the glass?
I love you.
One of my favourite games of last generation was the moody, futuristic Deus Ex from Square Enix and Eidos Montreal, with good old Nix's handling the PC release. But as you've just seen from my dramatically edited and scored intro, it also had one of the best soundtracks to grace a game. Michael McCann produced a suitably industrial electronic score, evocatively mixed with their haunting religious vocals that helped the game draw you in from the start. And few games nail the opening as well as this prequel to the original Deus Ex, that have half a life anyway. Set 25 years before that game's events, and as the apartheid rises up from the beginning of human revolution, as the augmented are shunned by the humans. This obviously creates a web of distrust, corporate control and sinister plots, which seems about the right time that we come in, playing Adam Jenson, the gravel voice anti-hero fresh from your SWAT days, now working for Sarif Industries in what other city but Detroit as head of security.
Megan's team was testing it the day that bastard... Who's on point for these guys?
Adam, I know you and Megan were once...
Who is on point for these guys?
The bleak tone is set, as in Robocop style you are brutally crucified and reborn as your new enhanced and augmented self. The only time in the game that a choice is taken away from you, with its vast open design allowing a myriad of playstyles, choices and even personal progression, which all affects how your tale plays out. Now you can either embrace these augments or shun them and stay as close to human as you possibly can. This freedom was and is still a breath of fresh air. Choosing a lethal or non-lethal approach before missions means you can keep your conscience purer than your genes, or let the anger consume you as you fall into the dark side. But even this is not fixed, as you can switch and adapt throughout play as the dynamic action unfolds. Multiple pass-through levels, intelligent AI that can be tricked, lose sight of you and even fool makes for a thoroughly exciting action, as does the balance of exploration, puzzle and range. How many games have you played where you can talk your way out of a boss battle?
Go on, get out of here. You're free to go.
Or just cut the chatter and directive? Boring conversation anyway. If you've never played it before, then now you have double reason to, as it is currently free for Xbox Live Gold members, while also being another backwards compatible title for you to play either on your Xbox One or your 360. And I cannot recommend it enough, as it is an absolute classic and will prepare you for its enhanced and improved sequel coming online later this year. But we'll ignore the boss battles for now. So from the original 360 release, the game held itself well, with post-effects used within the game from a Gaussian blur, depth of field, dynamic lighting and shadows, bloom, along with its near sepia-coloured corrected tone, widely referred to as a piss filter by some, and since coined for other games. Running a full 1280 by 720 display on the 360, we see the same native display effects, right down to its as then new FXAA anti-aliasing within play to help reduce the frequency issues from edge high contrast areas, which are plentiful in a game that centres around its own digital revolution. Being one of the early DX11 crossover titles, Timothy Lott's solution was still new and yet to take over the console generation. Due to it being a post solution, it could be retrofitted into many titles. It had complete screen coverage, but could ignore text, but more importantly, was a cheap solution to use. The full fat PC release did go a little further on this, along its other options like AMD's own MLAA solution also. Now, unlike many games I've looked at through my BC collection, the original game, like all titles under emulation, runs with a full vertical sync in place across all action, so both versions always lock to a full refresh cycle. And like many other 360 titles I have tested, the limited 10 meg of EDRAM and approximately 500 megabytes of DDR in the system means many games could only hold a double buffer front and back, which means if the render is having a lighter time at points, it can be allowed to flip its buffer to make way for a new frame to be cached. This gives us some occasional 16 millisecond frame times and thus heady heights of 31, with the comparative bountiful buffer space on the Xbox One meaning it can hold its frame as needed to never give us any spike times on our graph. But these are so rare in appearance it would never be noticed or give any pacing issues, and is reasonably common for adaptive synced games, but not as much so for V-Sync titles like this. In action, the game on its host hardware starts off very well with the first few quiet moments giving us a cap 30 on both, aside the odd spike as mentioned above on the 360, and first blood is drawn briefly by the Xbox One with the 360 dipping slightly when firing the gun, but both see stutters coming from IO activity streaming in new data. This happens much across the game's vast sprawling levels, as by design you can take them in multiple routes, so the amount of sector points are plentiful in the game. But these can appear to take longer and affect the X1 more, as seen here with the stairwell walk causing a brief murmur on both, but whereas the 360 quickly recovers, the X1 continues to have issues right up to and at the top step before subsiding. But these are not often this bad. Now, it must be said that both versions are fully installed on their respective drives, and playing the game on 360 from the disc can enhance these issues to be more in line with the Xbox One version here. But on a positive note, loading times from the 360 are improved here by a good few seconds, which is a welcome boost. But into the game's action set pieces, we see the reverse issues from the 360's most likely double buffered render, as it struggles to complete a frame in time, giving us a flat 50 millisecond run, which converts to 20 in the timings. These being most likely GPU related, as when I zoom in to shoot you get the constant lock, as the screen is swamped with more geometry and alpha effects, including the game's strong use of HDR bloom. With the X1 also having issues here, but keeping a 5 or more FPS advantage and far less 50 millisecond times, most likely helped by its GPU fill rate here. But this is not always the way in battle, with other sections seeing a locked 30 on 360 with issues on the Xbox One. This means that through my test of 360, although having issues like this and they both struggle with the lobby for example, as is mostly the case if the 360 struggles, the X1 does also. What is odd here is the sections look most likely GPU related, and you would therefore imagine it should run better on the Xbox One as we saw earlier, but not here and in other areas. My thoughts on this are, the game was a later generation title. It was one of many that used the CPU to help the GPU out. The game's abundant ambient occlusion work, DOF and Bloom for example, along with its AA solution are all quite good for the time, along with its texture work, and even if the halo around characters can look slightly anime in action. And here with the CPU already having to cope with the conversion demands of the emulator, when we have extra load on this that would or should be GPU bound, but instead is being asked of the CPU, and this probably means it will be processed by the Jaguar cores here. Check out my article on how all this works and why this emulation is tougher than you may think on our new website and upcoming video. But this does seem to highlight that again CPU and IO activity are the biggest hurdles for the tech team at Microsoft to overcome. This is running the latest release of the title and also therefore using the version they see best fit for the emulator. So in the end, the game is certainly one of my recommendations to play, and Microsoft have given enough reasons here to make this a no-brainer to try. If you have the choice, the 360 is the better platform to experience it on due to its slightly better performance in firefights and streaming, but the X1 version is good enough and not sufficiently handicapped, as some of the backwards compatibility titles seem to be, to ruin the experience, and can still be enjoyed with it coming in at a bargain price. No better time to go Leroy Jenkins! Oh, sorry, I mean Adam Jenson. Anyway, as always, I hope you guys and girls enjoyed this. If you did, then please hit the like and subscribe button, as it really helps me immensely, and I appreciate everyone that does. Please check out our new website and also follow me on Twitter. And it leaves me to say, leave your thoughts and all your feedback below. You take care, and I'll see you very soon on the next one.
Step away from the console. Now! me!